The estranged husband and father of the suspect is shedding new light on the case. Damon Decree Sr. says Shanna and Dominique Decree were part of an online cult and would talk about demons being all around them. They're charged with killing 5 family members. The bodies were discovered Monday in an apartment in Morrisville. Decree has no sympathy for the suspects.
I know one of the suspects is my daughter and my wife. They killed my son, and if they did that, I don't want to see them in no same asylum. I want to see them in jail for the rest of their life.
Whisper in the night dark, footsteps in the backyard, shadows dance on stained walls, bloodlust every nightfall. Fear grips like chains tied, chasing you in moonlight. Eyes gleam with twisted clay, no escape from me.
What up, home slices, home fries, and homes of other varieties? If you're new, welcome. I'm Emily, the Fine Art Medium. I'm a psychic medium who specializes in the paranormal, and I have a degree in social deviance. And if you've been here before, welcome back. And so we will be covering the case of Shanna and Dominique Decree, not quite sure how to say their last name. But essentially, this case took place, it took place in the county over from me. And essentially, it's a mother and daughter duo that slayed 5 family members and obviously are now in jail. But I will go through their case, what happened, the trial if I have that information, and then I did a little tarot card or oracle card reading with my cards that I made personally, and I'll be throwing that in the video as well. So yeah, let's crack into this. Just a little side note, I did do channeling, and I did get a bunch of information, and because of the information that I got, I will put this on Patreon, which technically, as you guys are watching this video, I pre-recorded this weeks ago, so it'll have been already on Patreon. And for the members that are viewing this video early, yes, you guys can go on Patreon as soon as this video comes out and see what I have in my channel notes. But yes, the case is as follows. A mother and her adult daughter killed 5 of their close relatives, including 3 children, and were found disoriented after child affair authorities arrived for a supervised visit to their trashed apartment outside Philadelphia. Police and prosecutors said on Tuesday. This occurred February 20. Well, the time this article was published was February 26, 2019. So I'm going to say this occurred a day or two, maybe even a few days before the 26th. But anyway, so Shanna Decree, 45, and her daughter Dominique Decree, sorry if I'm saying it wrong, 19, were charged with 5 counts of homicide and 1 count each of conspiracy. The motive and how the 5 family members died are unclear. Their bodies were found that Monday night. As confusing as it was last night, we are no closer to understanding that in the harsh light of day, Bucks County District Attorney Matthew Weintraub said at a news conference Tuesday, "We will continue to pursue every lead and to work this case to its conclusion." The victims were Shanna's children, Naira Smith, 25, and Damon Decree Jr., 13 years old, both of Morrisville. Shanna Decree's sister, Jamila Campbell of Trenton, New Jersey, and Campbell's 9-year-old twin daughters, Amani and Erica Allen. Authorities discovered the scene after a Bucks County child welfare officer arrived Monday evening for an unannounced visit and was let into the building by someone who works there, according to court papers. Police say they found Shanna and Dominique Decree disoriented inside the apartment where furniture had been turned over, drywall was cracked, and glass lay around. Police initially said they found 4 bodies, but they discovered a 5th underneath another that was next to a bed. The mother and daughter were taken to a hospital and at first told authorities they didn't know what happened. Before telling authorities about their involvement in the slayings, Shauna DeCray said her sister Jamila's boyfriend and 2 unknown men killed the 5 family members but left Shanna and Dominique alive, according to an affidavit. Shanna DeCray then told police that everyone at the apartment wanted to die and talked about suicide. According to court documents, she said that she killed one of the victims, that she and her daughter Dominique killed another together, and that Campbell killed 2 other victims before she herself was slain by Dominique. The apartments are in Morrisville, which sits on the Delaware River, northeast of Philadelphia and across from Trenton, New Jersey. The 3-story red brick apartment complex is on a busy road lined with auto repair shops, a safe and lock shop, and a bail bond agency nearby. Ty Hall, 24, of Bristol, Pennsylvania, said she attended Morrisville High School with Smith and spoke with her about 3 months ago. Hall, whose mother lives in a neighboring apartment, said Smith was attending cosmetology school. She remembered Smith warmly. She was a happy person and cared for people, Hall said. It's interesting because it looks like the father of Dominique and the son, he had called, I guess, Child Protective Services because things didn't seem right and he wanted to make sure his kids were fine. So that tells me there were other things going on. It's weird because at the trial, they were both expressing remorse and that they were sorry. They were saying to hear that the only reason they did not get death penalty was because they were diagnosed with severe mental health disorders. Deputy District Attorney Christopher Reese said Monday that the killings took place over the course of 3 days. Court-appointed psychologists and psychiatrists concluded that both defendants had severe mental illness, including schizoid personality disorder, major depressive disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Both had sought mental health treatment, and Dominique's attorney, John Fioravanti Jr., said his client started from age 5. Shauna DeCray's attorney, Krista Donlevy, said her client was isolated and delusional at the time of the killings, believing the world was ending and there were demons in her house and she had to obey them. And then Donlevy said her family tried to help her, but the delusions were too strong. Attorneys for both defendants said their clients had expressed horror and remorse following the killings. District Attorney Matt Weintraub said in a statement that if not for their severe mental illness, both defendants would face the death penalty, but instead they will spend the rest of their lives in prison cells separated from the rest of us. By murdering Erica, Amani, Damon, Naira, and Jamila, they've decimated entire generations of their own family. Yeah, that's FUBAR right there. That is FUBAR. Yeah, that is crazy. I'm getting chills just reading this. We're going to go into schizoid personality disorder, major depressive disorder. I feel like PTSD, many people already kind of know what it is, so I don't necessarily want to cover it. I mean, you can always Google it. Google is a great resource. So is Mayo Clinic, and also the NIMH.nih.gov. They're really good when it comes to mental health disorders and stuff like that. So yeah. Before I get into the psychology side of things, I am going to start with my channeled notes with this case. Now, it deals with multiple people, so it's a little tricky. But I'm going to relay the information the best I can. Again, if you're new here, I get a lot of symbols and sounds and things, and it's about trying to interpret the things that I receive from spirit, which is the hardest part, is the interpretation. And so, this is just like my best, I don't want to say guess, but interpretation of the information I received. But so the first thing that I saw was a mushroom. Now that can be interpreted in many different ways. That could be in reference to taking shrooms. It can be in reference in being earthy, natured. It can be in reference to mind-altering substances. So there's a lot of things a mushroom could mean. Interestingly enough, I was hearing this low, ominous hum sound. It almost sounded like that hum you hear in Gregorian chants. It was kind of strange, but the only other time I've heard this was when I was watching and reacting to the Paranormal Files video where he got his cleansing through Hecate. Like, I heard that low hum vibration. And usually when you hear low hums like that, it is a low frequency, and it can mean low frequency or vibrational beings. I was seeing a mini jungle gym swing set area outside of an apartment building complex with a basketball court. I started getting head pain around my third eye area, a lot of like pressure here. My ears were ringing. It first started with both my ears and then my right ear, and it was like a medium frequency. Typically when I hear like really high pitched, that's like a good validation for me that I'm getting communication through high benevolent guides. But in this case, I was getting a medium kind of frequency. And I've been tested for tinnitus. So anyone who's going to come at me with, oh, it's because you have tinnitus. No, I was tested for that multiple times. All right. So I was also getting like the mother and daughter did certain activities together. Now you could say, oh yeah, the murders. But I feel like they did things together, like hobbies and activities, and maybe even substances, allegedly. These are just alleged right here. I was seeing a lot of thought form looking entities. The apartment building is covered with dark energies, and I was seeing this shadowy cloaked entity consuming negative energy. It literally looked like either like a Death Eater, or like if you watch Lord of the Rings, those things that fly around and kill people. But this thing was just standing there, all shadowy, and it was just consuming all this negative energy. I even drew a little picture. But yeah, he's stuffing his face with negative energy. I also saw a cross, like this kind of cross. I did see like the Ace of Cups, which is strange. And that's why I pulled my cards in the first place, was because I was seeing cards. And that could also mean like they were into spirituality. They could have done tarot, oracle cards, stuff like that. Ace of Cups can mean a multitude of things, such as like receiving a gift from spirit. I was getting stomach pain, which to me, usually when I get stomach pain, a certain type of pain in my stomach, it's indicative, I can never say that word right, of like solar plexus, of like an attachment being there, or a blockage in the solar plexus area, or stomach or abdominal regions. I did see an upside down pentagram, which that could mean a multiple of things. That could be messing around with dark things, or messing around with things that they didn't understand. I was also seeing a container that you burn incense in or resins in, and it was kind of like a fancy ornate looking one. I was seeing a variation of several creepy faces that could be from the thought forms, or it could be from the perspective of them hallucinating, or if they are spiritually open, maybe they had clairvoyant abilities or energy sensitivities, or again, it could been delusions or hallucinations. And for whatever reason, I kept seeing large spiders, and when I see spiders like that through meditation, it can mean a few things, such as there could be a parasitic entity, attachment, or haunting, or there are astral spiders hanging around feeding off the energies. But this felt more like a parasitic entity feeding. And then I was seeing a small mound of something that looked like black salt or ashes or soot. It was just like a little mound of like a dark, powdery substance. I feel like the mother had some really bad traumas, and the daughter might have as well. I was getting depression. I feel like either the mother, daughter, or both were spiritual in some way, shape, or form, and may have been involved in some sort of spiritual practices. However, I feel like they were vulnerable due to several things that led to their influence of murdering their family members, mental health issues, and potential mind-altering substances may have been at play. But I don't think it was all paranormal or all influence. So that is what I got in terms of my channel notes. All right, so we have Longtime Haunting here. Whoa, hello. All right, let's see, what is this one? Sacral chakra. I was getting stomach pain, so that makes sense. I also was getting solar plexus as well, but yeah. Ooh, I'm getting sweaty. Someone close to you. Yeah, that makes sense here. And these cards are just validating, or the point is to validate what I was picking up. That flipped around. Addiction. You know, I did point that out, but it didn't specifically say to what. I had kept seeing a mushroom and like some kind of mind altering substance. Demon. Alright, so when it comes to these cards, they can be metaphorical or at face value. So Longtime Haunting makes sense, honestly. It makes sense in the way that when I was doing the reading, it looked like they were into things that they had no business messing with. I was getting pain in my stomach area and like ovary area. Ovary area is kind of, for women anyway, is kind of sacral area. I was getting solar plexus as well because that's where my pain was the most. So it's possible that it can be both. And then someone close to you, it makes sense because it's a mother-daughter situation. Addiction, I pretty much covered that earlier. Attention seeker, this could be in terms of like the entity trying to get the attention of them, or it could be the two women in general trying to get attention, but it doesn't feel that way. I did see multiple entities in the apartment complex in which they were at or around. There was a lot of dark energy and there's a lot of thought forming stuff going on. Demon, that could just be like what they think it is. It could be their perception. I don't think it's a demon at all. I think there's a lot of shit going on and it's just their perception that they're saying it's demonic when it's not. But depending on the person's religion or culture affiliation, they could be taught anything negative that's not human is demonic. I mean, that's a common theme we see in Christianity and Catholicism, so it doesn't surprise me. But it's not a demon. There's just other non-human things at play. that feed off of the negative energy. But in my opinion, I feel like these cards do validate at least what I was picking up. In terms of long time haunting, I feel like the attachment the mother has, she's had it for a long time. And it's possible for attachments to carry over into children, and they can share attachments. And it's also possible for the mother and their child to have different attachments. So, yeah, this has been going on for a while. But I thought this would be a fun little extra thing to provide in my video. But yeah, so I'm gonna cut this section, and now that we're done here, I am going to cleanse the cards again. Since the smoke's still going, get this going. So if you're a tarot or oracle card reader, make sure you cleanse your cards regularly. It is very important. It can throw off your readings if they are saturated in residual or any type of negative energy. Alright, I'm going to put this out because we don't need it anymore. I still have my candle going. Okay, now let's get into the psychology part. So court psychologists diagnosed mother and daughter, plus user history, and found that, they were diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder, major depressive personality disorder, and PTSD. So if you don't know what schizoid personality disorder is, I'm going to tell you. Schizoid personality disorder, and again, you can find this on the Mayo Clinic, and the resources will be down below. But so schizoid personality disorder is a condition where a person shows very little, if any, interest and ability to form relationships with other people. It's very hard for the person to express a full range of emotions. If you have schizoid personality disorder, you may be seen as keeping to yourself or rejecting others. You may not be interested in or able to form close relationships or romantic relationships because you do not tend to show emotion. It may appear that you do not care about others or what's going on around you. Schizoid personality disorder is less common than other personality disorders, but it's much more common than schizophrenia. The cause is not known. Some symptoms of schizoid personality disorder are similar to autism spectrum disorders, other personality disorders, especially avoidant personality disorder, and early symptoms of schizophrenia. It's interesting because there's a lot of similarities with other disorders, like it says. Now, symptoms. If you have schizoid personality disorder, it's likely that you want to be alone and do activities alone. Do not want or enjoy close relationships. Feel little, if any, desire for sexual relationships. Take pleasure in few activities, if any. Find it hard to express your emotions and react. May lack humor or not be interested in others, or you may be cold towards others. May lack the drive that makes you want to reach goals. Do not react to praise or criticism from others. People may view you as odd or unusual. Schizoid personality disorder most often begins when a person is a young adult, but some symptoms might be noticed during childhood. These symptoms may make it hard to do well in school, at work, in social situations, or in other areas of life. But the person may do well if the job can be done by mostly working alone. Schizoid personality disorder and schizophrenia. Although the names may sound alike, schizoid personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and schizophrenia spectrum disorders are all different types of mental health conditions, but they can have similar symptoms, such as not being able to make social connections or show a full range of emotions. In contrast to schizotypal personality disorder and schizophrenia, people who have schizoid personality disorder are in touch with reality, are not likely to feel paranoid or hold bizarre beliefs or hallucinate, make sense when speaking. Although the tone may not be lively, the content of the person's speech is not strange or hard to follow. Honestly, I feel like if you're somebody that's trying to adapt and protect your self-esteem and just yourself, it may come across as this disorder. So I don't know if I necessarily agree, but to be fair, I don't have the full histories of both the mother and the daughter. Now let's talk about major depressive disorder. Major depressive disorder is just a fancy word for depression, honestly. It is common, but a serious mood disorder. It causes severe symptoms that affect how a person feels, thinks, and handles daily activities, such as sleeping, eating, or working. To be diagnosed with depression, the symptoms must be present for at least 2 weeks. There are different types of depression, some of which develop due to specific circumstances. So you have major depression, which includes symptoms of depressed mood or loss of interest, most of the time for at least 2 weeks, that interfere with daily activities. Then you have persistent depressive disorder, also called dysthymia or dysthymic disorder, consists of less severe symptoms of depression that last much longer, usually for at least 2 years. Perinatal depression is depression that occurs during pregnancy or after childbirth. Depression that begins during pregnancy is prenatal depression, and depression that begins after the baby is born is postpartum depression. Seasonal affective disorder is depression that comes and goes with the seasons, with symptoms typically starting in the late fall or early winter and going away during the spring and summer. Then you have depression with symptoms of psychosis. That is a severe form of depression in which a person experiences psychosis symptoms, such as delusions, disturbing or false fixed beliefs, or hallucinations, hearing or seeing things others do not hear or see. Anyone pretty much can get depression. Signs and symptoms of depression: persistent, sad, anxious, or empty mood, feelings of hopelessness or pessimism, feelings of irritability, frustration, or restlessness, feelings of guilt, worthlessness, or helplessness, loss of interest or pleasure in hobbies and activities, fatigue, lack of energy or feeling slowed down, difficulty concentrating, remembering, or making decisions, difficulty sleeping, waking too early in the morning or oversleeping, changes in appetite or unplanned weight changes, physical aches or pains, headaches, cramps, or digestive problems without a clear physical cause that do not go away with treatment, thoughts of death or suicidal attempts. Not everyone who is depressed experiences all of these symptoms. Some people experience only a few symptoms, while others experience many. Symptoms associated with depression interfere with day-to-day functioning and cause significant distress for the person experiencing them. Depression can also involve other changes in mood or behavior that include increased anger or irritability, feeling restless or on edge, becoming withdrawn, negative or detached, increased engagement in high-risk activities, greater impulsivity, increased use of alcohol or drugs, isolating from family and friends, inability to meet the responsibilities of work and family or ignoring other important roles, problems with sexual desire and performance. And depending on the gender, it may look different. But it's interesting because they diagnosed them both with schizoid personality disorder and depression. Well, at least I got that right in my notes. But it makes me wonder, though, for people that are very spiritual and maybe that are sensitive to energies, I feel like those kinds of people are more likely to get diagnosed with something like this. And I feel like it has a lot to do with them only experiencing it, and so it's hard for other people to validate it. But so if the daughter was having issues at the age of 5, right? I'm sure you can have mental health issues come at that age, but like, especially if it's genetic and or something that they're born with and you notice right away. But like, let's say, for example, the kid, or at least Dominique at that age, was like, hey, I see some dead people, or I'm seeing ghosts, I have imaginary friends. Maybe instead of diagnosing the person that early in age, it's kind of like you want to see where it goes in a way, but also like if they are seeing stuff, maybe try validate it. But it's just strange that they were diagnosed that early in age. So, I don't know. I feel like it's too early to diagnose a child with some of these disorders. Now, the only thing that would make sense is if the mother clearly had issues and then they started seeing signs in her daughter at that age and they're like, oh no, and they recognize the patterns quickly, then maybe. But still, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. Again, I don't know their history, their life history, so what do I know, right? But this is just based off of like psychic opinion and what I know in terms of my studies and my degree. I am not licensed, so a lot of the information I provide is just educational guesses or educational opinions, or you know what I mean. But so I don't feel like it's quite right, but I'm wondering if the mother or daughter or both had substance abuse issues. And this murder took place over, 3 days, they said? How did that go unnoticed for 3 days? And if other family members tried to intervene, why didn't they call 911? Like, it makes no sense. I do feel like having some mental health issues will impact how much or how easily a person can be influenced. But in this case, I feel like it's both. You can have psychosis and depression, but there's elements of this case that they're not saying or publicizing, which makes sense. If you are trying to get answers, you don't want to put everything out into the public. You want to do your own investigation and figure out the truth without any outside influences. So I get it, but I'm wondering too, like, if they did the substance abuse, because that could also influence how easy an entity can influence a person. And you have both of them doing it and committing the acts. And obviously, you can't take what they say at face value. They did a crime, they'll try to get out of it. And so they could try to say anything to get out of it. But the daughter was like, oh, they wanted to die. It's like, and if they believed that the world was ending, they could have seen it as like a mercy thing. Or if they were influenced, it could have been like the entity saying, hey, you're doing them a favor, they won't have to suffer. And the way in which things were found in the apartment, with drywall being cracked, glass being everywhere, obviously there was a struggle. But it's interesting that they're both disoriented. Furniture had been turned over, drywall was cracked, and glass was everywhere. Like I said, a struggle. They were probably fighting to not get unalived. And the father said that they were talking about demons being in the house and that they might be in some cult. But the police did state that, through their investigation, they didn't see any evidence of a cult. But I'm wondering, like, if they were looking for Charles Manson level cult activity versus, like, online groups. If you get into spirituality, you got to be careful, especially if you're not quite sure the path you want to go, but you find something that you are in a line with that might not be the greatest, right? It can be easy to get trapped in some of these things, especially the doomsday cults, where I noticed there's a lot of Christians or Christian-like religions get caught up into, because they are so caught up and wrapped up into some of the passages where it talks about the end of times and stuff like that, and how people need to prepare and so on and so forth. And I'm wondering, though, if, like, that was part of it. Like, you can have sects of Christianity that are more on the spiritual end of things that talk about like doomsday things and the second coming of Jesus and 2012 and end of the world. So it's easy to get caught up in that, especially when you see current events that kind of fall in line with some of the predictions, or not predictions, but some of the stories that are in the Bible, and you see parallels. And then, yeah, if someone believes into that, you can get wrapped up into that. But I wouldn't even necessarily say that they have a mental health disorder. It could just be seeing patterns in things and being like, oh no. It also depends on their religion and culture too, and how they were raised. And that's why it's kind of difficult to diagnose people with certain disorders, especially when it comes to disorders that have delusions as their symptoms. Because you have to weigh it, is it a delusion or is it a cultural thing that they learned? And again, as humans, our natural instincts are to protect us and to keep us alive. And so picking out patterns and assessing threats, that's a normal part of human survival. And so it's just some people's brains take it to a little bit high of an extreme and they go a little far. But yeah, I did want to mention that. So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I feel like their diagnosis is a smidge off for the both of them. There are other potential things that could be at play, but we also need to know if there is substance abuse, because that'll dictate. But there's so much missing information. I don't want to just throw out a diagnosis or a guess diagnosis, because again, we don't know their full history. But yeah, guys, overall, I think there's a lot of like trauma and mental health stuff going on that affected the influenceability, if that's a word, of them. And while I think they already had things going on that may have led them down to the susceptibility of being influenced and or just carrying out thoughts that they might not have carried out, but they at least had them. That's where the influence, I believe, would have come in. But I do feel there is some paranormal element at play, especially because of the thought forms there at the apartment building. Apartment buildings are known for thought forms because there's so many people there. There's just all this energy going in and out, and just the consumption of energy, and all of those people have their own attachments, and it's kind of like a feeding ground in general. And then if there is substance abuse, again, we don't know, that could affect it. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna end it here. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, leave them down below and let me know what you think. Do you think this is all mental health? Do you think it's all paranormal? Do you think it's both? Again, let me know what you think down below. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all soon. Peace out.
Follow me. Hunted under the pale moon, breathless, you'll meet your doom.